Hello, this is a message called Happy Are the Pure. When I was an English literature student, I was very taken by a novel called Tess of d'Urbervilles, published in 1891 by Thomas Hardy. Its subtitle is A Pure Woman, Faithfully Presented. Tess is a young woman who works on a farm. She, not knowing the ways of the world, is taken advantage of by a man called Alec, and later gives birth to his child, who subsequently dies. She falls in love with another man, Angel. She marries him, but after the wedding tells him of her previous experience. Angel then leaves her. Facing poverty, she returns to Alec, who is now supposedly a born-again Christian, but ends up murdering him. She is reunited with Angel, who is now sorry that he didn't stay with her. They spend a little time together before she is arrested and sentenced to death. Angel then marries her sister. Cheery stuff. Hardy's Victorian readers were shocked as a female character who had had a child out of wedlock should be described as pure, no matter what the circumstances. Yet for Hardy, her honest, courageous character warranted that description. He focuses on the qualities she has, which arguably make her pure in heart, rather than focusing on her body as a mark of her impurity. It is the keeping of her moral character as a woman, and responding nobly, with the exception of the murder, to her experiences, rather than being the innocent, untested girl she once was. The Victorian ideal is the absence of experience in a woman, but for Hardy, the ideal woman is one who responds to experience with courage. Nowadays, the word pure is more likely to describe a health food or a radio than a virginal or chaste woman. But perhaps something of the idea or something about something in its basic state still remains. Food without additives, a clear sound. The additives would sully the food, make it impure. Other noises would corrupt the singular sound. This is the second of 3 messages I am giving about Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, or the Beatitudes. His key teaching on how his followers should live their lives, what we should do. This week I'm looking at purity. Blessed are the pure in heart, Jesus says in Matthew's version of the sermon. They will see God. Happy are the pure. Later in the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew records a meeting between Jesus and some Pharisees, and their discussion relates to what makes a person clean. It is an issue of purity. The Pharisees asked Jesus why his disciples do not follow the tradition of washing their hands before they eat. In response, Jesus accuses them of replacing God's actual command with a man-made tradition. He quotes Isaiah saying that their hearts are far from God. He then proceeds to teach those gathered about purity. What goes into a man's mouth does not make him unclean, he says, but what comes out of his mouth, that is what makes him unclean. He explains further, don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? But the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart, and these make a man unclean. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. These are what make a man unclean, but eating with unwashed hands does not make him unclean. Just as God said to Samuel, people look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart, so Jesus is concerned with purity of the heart, inner cleanliness, rather than outward actions of people's bodies and how they appear to others. Ritual hand washing is worthless if the person doing it is neglecting her parents, being unfaithful to his wife, or lying in court. Miserable are the impure. Jesus is speaking of the corrupted heart, the person sullied by sin. This person needs to be cleansed by God. Yet the Genesis accounts of the beginning of the world show an originally pure, innocent world, made impure by a desire for knowledge and power on the part of humans. Although seemingly contradictory, I think both these accounts of human behaviour are true and still relevant for us today. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve lived pure lives before sin entered their world and corrupted them. So in this way, we should all be imagining ourselves as the image bearers of God we were created to be, even though we have been tarnished. However, living in the world we do, we are always tempted by thoughts of things that are wrong, and we need to turn towards God to obtain a pure heart. It's an ongoing struggle between good and evil, dark and light. As the Apostle Paul admits in his letter to the Romans, I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature, for I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For what I do is not the good I want to do. No, the evil I do not want to do. This I keep doing. What a wretched man I am! Who will rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to God, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Created for a good, pure life, we still cannot avoid being marred by bad, by impurity. But God can make us pure again. Happy are the pure. Many Christians throughout history have lived either in isolation, such as Julian of Norwich, or have been removed to monastic communities where perhaps it was more straightforward to live a pure life, despite human sin always being present in everyone's heart. However, for the rest of us who live in the world, in the midst of contemporary society, how can we hope to achieve purity? We are all influenced by what we see going on around us, and I think it is wise to be aware of this. Arguably, we live in a culture that is materialistic, individualistic, interested in one's own choices and satisfaction of personal desires. This can't help but rub off on the way we think and the way we act. Yet this pandemic has also shown us the good in our society, the kindness as well as the selfishness. The Apostle Paul talks about filling our minds with good things, whether they be from within the Christian community or from outside it. Whatever is true, he writes to the Philippians, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. I wonder what we have noticed around us lately that is noble, is right, is pure, is lovely, is to be admired, is excellent, is to be praised. Can we dwell on those things rather than the negative things we witness? Happy are the pure. So what does it mean to be pure in heart? And how might this mean we will see God? Where does impurity come from? I suggest that some conversations we might have, or unhealthy relationships, could contain impurities. Some books, magazines, TV programs, computer games, and websites could contain impurities. Their content could be the opposite of Paul's list of whatever is true, noble, right, pure. Their content might be gossipy, slanderous, negative, superficial, selfish, violent, disrespectful, God-denying, idolatrous. I'm sure we know the difference between fact and fiction and have a gut feeling for what is bad for us and those around us. But I believe we should all regularly reflect on whether the way we spend our time has any adverse effects on our thoughts or behaviour. We should also make ourselves accountable to someone we trust to reflect on this too. Whatever is pure, think of these things. Blessed are the pure. If we imagine an alloyed metal, we can compare it to the raw material of our God-given hearts. Yet this metal is scratched and rust over time, tarnished by the world we live in. With God's help, we can clean and polish it, so as it shines with his love and our love for one another. Blessed are the pure. So here we have a coin. all nice and shiny and new. This can represent us as God created us to be. But once we're in the world, we become tarnished by the dirt around us, by bad things around us. But with God's help, we can become shiny again and freed from the sin that surrounds us. My prayer is that we will live seeking an innocence that is a rejection of being corrupted by our experiences, looking for the best in human nature, striving to live out love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness and self-control. My prayer is that God will wipe away anything left in us that is impure, and then we will see him face to face. Blessed are the pure.